All right, Boker to everyone. We are going to. I haven't done this video, this teaching in a long time. I wanted to do it again and kind of redo it. I did it several years ago, and I wanted to talk about head covering for women, particularly, with a disclaimer. I'm not telling anyone that they're sinful for not doing this. This is a custom of Jewish women. So I'm not trying to say all my friends who are not Jewish. This isn't towards you to say you're wrong or bad. I want to be clear about that. I be very honest about that. So I want to put this disclaimer first and foremost. Um, and and there's even more opinions on this. You know, you can see pictures of um, Rabbonim, older Rabbonim, the most respected out of Rabbonim or rabbis, that wives, their head was uncovered. So I'm not trying to say that, I, I'm not a gadol, I'm not a Torah master, I'm just a regular Jew who studies. And so we're gonna go first. We're gonna go through the Torah, see the Raisa with it. Then we're gonna go to the Mishnah, and then the Gemara, and then we're gonna go to code literature, particularly the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. So, all right, so let's start. So we're going to start at Parshas Naso, Perek, and it says at Posuk 18. The Kohen shall have the woman stand before Hashem, or God, and uncover the woman's head. And then upon her hands he shall put the meal offering of remembrance. Now, it's interesting that not just the Masoretic text, but also the Septuagint and Onkelos, they render it all the same way, that a woman should uncover her hair. Rashi goes deeper and he says this is in order to degrade her. And from here we see regarding the daughters of Israel that laying bare the head is shameful for them. So we see that even Rashi renders this as uncovering hair. Rashi, interestingly, before then he talks about undo the braid in her hair, rather that her head is covered and then it's braided. It's funny, I think of a family custom of my grandmother. I think a lot of women do this, not just, it was my great grandmother, and whenever she wore a wig, she would braid her hair under it. But I think that's just a natural custom. But interestingly, that was done. Also, another custom I talk about is in my family, we didn't cut the children's hair until they're the age of 5. So just want to throw that out there. But so I'm not sure if Rashi is talking about under the covering that the hair is braided, very possibly. We know that, if I remember correctly, our sage says Tamar was so modest that she had everything covered but her eyes. We see this in Islamic countries as well, but originally it was a Jewish practice. Eventually, in different areas, we let go of that practice due to not being associated with other religions. But we'll talk about that in even detail when we get closer to the end of the lecture. So let's look at the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, I usually use I like the Blackman's Mishnah. Is like the black man's Mishnah. It's literally called Blackman's Mishnah. I think personally it's the best. I like it. I've always liked it. It's very simple and very straightforward. So we see it says, interestingly, it says Vezuhi das Yehudis, which means it says what is the custom, particularly amongst Jewish women. If she goes forth with her hair loose, or if she spins in the street, or if she holds converse with all men. Abba Saul said, also, if she curses his parents to his face, Rabbi Tarfon says as well, also if she be a loud voiced woman, what is here by a loud voiced woman? Such as one who speaks in her house so her neighbors hear her voice. Now that goes further into other issues we'll talk about later, but that's what um, it's stating, that this isn't the custom of Jewish women to do these things. Um, so we're going into the Gemara and speak more in detail about those things as well. So we see that was, I believe, Kasubos or Kethubot or Kasubos. That was 7:6. So that was 7:6. So we're going to the Gemara, and we're going to Blot 72 or Dav 72, side B, and see where I got you marked. All right, so here we go. And let's see, I think it starts a little bit on side A. So for it is written, he shall uncover the head of the woman. And a Tana in the Academy of Rabbi Ishmael taught this is a warning to Jewish daughters, and that they should not go out with their hairs uncovered. And is this, is this biblical or is this a Rabbanan? Is this a Oraisa or is this a Rabbanan? And then I would agree that's a more of a Oraisa, but there's arguments about that. It is sufficient to cover her hair with a head basket. But in accordance to the rule of Jewish practice, it is prohibited for her to even go out with her head basket on her head. Rather, it is more thorough to covering is required. A more thorough covering is required. So it's saying that something, because you have holes in the head basket, so you want something more thorough, something that will cover more of the hair. Ravasi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, once she is wearing her head basket, there is no violation of going out with an uncovered head. The Baraisa implies that a mere head basket satisfies the requirement of Jewish practice. The Gemara finds this difficult. Rav Zera questions this. Where is this woman going? If you say she is going to the marketplace, does she this he? Why we have just learned that it is a violation to Jewish practice for women, particularly to go in public with nothing on her head but a basket. Rather, perhaps she is in the courtyard, but this would imply that even in privacy, her courtyard she should wear at least a head basket. But that is difficult for so. Then you have not left our father Abraham a daughter who will remain living with her husband. So the Gemara answers, and this is Abaye, and some say it is have Kahana, and Rav Yochanan refers to a woman going from one courtyard to another through an alley. Here she is more secluded than the public market or the thoroughfare, but least secluded than in her own courtyard. Hence, Jewish practice required that she is not bareheaded completely, but does not require her to don more than a head basket. So it's saying in kind of private quarters that woman doesn't need to be thoroughly covered, that she could wear, um, um, in this case, head basket. This is Gemara, so we're talking, what year is it? Is this May 2023? So you're talking, 1,600 years ago. So what it means if she spins in the market. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, This means that she exposes her arms to men as she spins. And Rav Kasida said in the name of Avmi, this means she spins and spinning the thread spreads her before her face, and that's spins at an appropriate place. Or if she speaks with every man. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that this means she flirts with young men. So now we see the Talmud relates to a particular problem or incident. Rabbi Bar Hana said, once I was walking behind Rav Ukva, and I saw a certain woman who was sitting. And she was there, but a certain Arab woman who was sitting. And she was casting her spindle and spinning. Sorry about that. And as she did so, the thread stretched before her face. And when she saw us, she deliberately broke off her spindle and threw it down on the road as a ruse to strike up a conversation with me. She said to me, "Young man, give me a spindle." Whereupon Rav Ukva made a provocative comment about her behavior, which he considered a violation of Jewish practice. Now that makes us think, was this Arab woman Jewish or not? But at the same time, the Rambam did say some interesting things about practices of all women, not just Jewish women, and marriage and whatnot. That certain ideas, since God has created a world, that there's some of these, even I'm paraphrasing, but there's even rules amongst non-Jewish people as well, and especially even rules of modesty. And us being a holy nation, we should impart Torah to everyone. What did he say about her? Ravina said, he said about her that she's like a woman in our Mishnah who weaves in the marketplace, whereas the rabbis say he said about her that she is like a woman in our Mishnah who speaks with every man. Abba Shaul says, reciting the Mishnah, also one who curses his parents in his presence. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, this includes one that curses the husband's parents before his children. And the Monadic is here. To remember this can be found, the verses Ephraim Manasseh shall be to me like Reuven and Shimon. The Gemara gives examples of such behavior. Rabbi said, for instance, she said to him, the grandson, may a lion devour grandfather, thus cursing her husband's father in front of his sons. Rabbi Tarfon concludes in the Mishnah, also a noisy woman. The Talmud or the Gemara explains the meaning of this term. What does the Mishnah mean by noisy woman? Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, it speaks of a case where she raises her voice regarding matters of intimacy. The Gemara presents an alternate explanation in the Brisa. It is taught a noisy woman refers to a case where she's engaged in intimacy with her husband in a house situated one courtyard away, and her voice can be heard in another courtyard, so that she is overheard by their neighbors. And can we say, I won't add to that, but then let the Tanaim or the Tana teach that this is a case of Mishnah. In a case of Mishnah later in the chapter, together with other cases of blemishes. So, all right. So obviously, these things that we rattled off, these aren't the practices of Jewish women. So basically the practice of Jewish women is to do the opposite of these things. So let's touch on, we're going to jump ahead and we're going to go to the Rambam, and we're going to go to the Mishneh Torah, and we're going to go to Helikoth Yeshut, and then we're going to go to Perikaf Dalet, and we're going to go to Halakha Yudbet. And it's very similar. The Enzo he das Yehudis. And it says, what is the meaning of the Jewish faith? And this is obviously das Yehudis is more towards Jewish women. The custom of modesty of Jewish women practice. When a woman performs any of the following acts, she is considered violated the Jewish faith. As what we said in reading the Gemara, they gave many examples, but when you go the opposite, you're supposed to perform the opposite of these negative traits. Also, you're going to hear this over and over again. So I want to say that concerning this as well. All right. So it says, I should have started at 11 or Yud Aleph. And so we were talking about the opposite, which is Yud Aleph. I'll read some of it. And it says, the following are the actions which women consider have violated the faith of Moses. Okay, so yeah, that's a little different. We didn't get to the faith of Moses, or what we have here, Avra al Das Moshe, which is violating the faith of Moses, which is going out to the marketplace with her head uncovered, taking vows or oaths that she does not keep, engaging in relations with her husband while in state of nidah, and failing to separate the halal, or feeding her husband food that is forbidden to eat. And then so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. But forbidden to eat is we know, ritually unslaughtered animals, and yada, 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 and goes through the list. So let's start at 12. So this is what you should do. The customs of modesty that Jewish women practice. When a woman performs any of the following acts, she is considered to have violated the Jewish faith. If she goes to the marketplace or the lane with openings on both ends without having her head fully covered, her hair is covered with a handkerchief, but not with a veil like other women. She spins flax or wool with a rose on her face, on her forehead, or on her cheek, like in modest women of the world. She spins in the marketplace and shows her forearms to men. She plays frivolously with young lads. She demands sexual intimacy from her husband in a loud voice and to her neighbors who are talking about their intimate affairs, or she curses her husband's family. So that is, if you do the opposite of those, you have broken the Jewish faith. So now we get to the Shulchan Aruch, and we're in Simon Kaf Aleph, Sef Bet, and it says, I'm using two versions. I have the physical version in English, and obviously one printed here. And it says, right here, it says, Jewish women may not go with an uncovered head in the marketplace, whether married or not, which that's very interesting. We know the Tanaim, even the girls cover their hair. Most other places don't. I personally, like what I said, I'm just a simple Jew. I would think it would be okay if a girl wore a hat or a headband or something simple if you want to follow this to the T. Do you have to? This is something that's not done today. So I wouldn't really stress upon it. You want to be in line with all clouds Israel. So I forgot to tell you where we we are at. We're in the Ever Ezra, and so that's where we're at in Shulchan Aruch. So now we're going to go further ahead, and we're going to go to 115, Simon 115, and we're going to go to Seth Dalit, or number 4. It says, um, what is the Jewish religion amongst women? Literally the exact same words that we've read over and over and over again, which is, let me go to that page. Zohi das Yudas. So we see the exact same thing, very similar. It's not quite the same wording. It's, obviously it's missing the Vav, but it's literally the same thing. It's saying the same thing. What is the custom of Jewish women? And is it will be almost verbatim, but it seems like the Moran kind of opens it up a little bit more. It is the custom of modesty that the daughters of Israel have practiced, and these are the things. If one did one of them, she transgressed the Jewish religion. She goes out in the marketplace, or to an open alley, or in a courtyard through which many pass, and her head is uncovered, and she's not wearing a shawl like all women, even though her hair is covered with a handkerchief. Or she spins in the market and rose or something similar in front of her face, on her forehead or her cheek, and she is promiscuous like the women of the world. Or she spins in the market and shows her arms to people, and is accustomed thirstily to flirt with young men. Or she's asking for intimacy out loud in a loud voice from her husband until her neighbors hear her speak about these matters. Or she curses her father, the father of her husband, in front of her husband. It's not just her parents, but now her particular father. And some say that it is the same ruling if she curses her father of her husband's to his face. And hold on. It is the same ruling if she curses her husband to his face. In every one of these cases, she goes out without her divorce settlement, so she loses the ketubah. If there are witnesses that he warned her about at first, as she transgressed his warning. And if there are no witnesses, she must swear that it's as her words and whatnot. We won't go deeper into that because I wasn't really getting on upon the divorce and the subject, but I was talking more or less modesty. What is Jewish practice amongst women? So that's it. I want to read something from the Benish High before I let you go. And it's from Laws for Women. Good book. My wife's book. I've looked through it a few times. It's a good book. And it says this. I like how the Benish High writes. He writes with a very sincere heart. He says, "Precious women, listen to the words of the sages. As 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 is well known, Hava was created from Adam's limbs. The sages teach us that prior to her creation, God pondered which of Adam's limbs would be the most suitable for this purpose. If Adam's head would be used, the traits of arrogance might become Hava's essential trait. Using his eyes might instill in her an overpowering urge to look at other men. Were the ears to be used, The urge to listen to gossip might become the elemental component of her being. If she were to be created from the mouth, Chava or Eve, I forgot, some of you don't know Chava is Eve, would be over talkative. The heart would cause her to be envious of others, while the hands would make her predisposed to theft. The legs would make her inclined to leave her home for long walks. Finally, God decided to use Adam's side, or Zelah, or his side, or what we would say is rib. That's kind of the base. It is rib or his side. A concealed part of the body. This would instill the trait of modesty into the very fabric of Hava's being. Every time God spoke to her thereafter, he would command her, be modest, be modest. And so, dear women, may Hashem protect you. It is self-evident that the trait of modesty is the integral component of every woman's being. Now, there are two aspects of modesty, external and internal. And women must dress in a modest manner. This means no part of her body other than her face, hands, and her neck may be exposed. The rest of her body must remain carefully concealed. One should not think that this law is only binding in Islamic countries, because we were talking before about um, Tamar and just her eyes showing, where the custom dictates that every woman must not be seen by strangers. Even in Europe, where it is acceptable for women to speak to strangers, Jewish women nevertheless dress according to with the above mentioned guidelines. And although it is true that many of their women do not cover their hair, which is strictly prohibited according to the Oraisa, Torah law, they claim in their defense that uncovered hair is not considered any more immodest than the hands nor the face, since it does not cause Jewish men in Europe to think unclean thoughts. Thus, we see that even those who are lenient about covering the hair agrees in the principle that a woman must dress modestly and that other parts of her body must remain covered. Parts of the body which are covered with see-through material are not considered concealed. The general rule is that a woman is permitted to beautify herself as she wishes as long as she does not deviate from the confines of the law. However, a dress which fulfills the requirements of the law but is nonetheless considered immodest according to the majority of Jewish women is prohibited to wear. For example, some dresses worn by prostitutes are in accordance with the letter of the law, yet it is prohibited to wear them. True modesty dictates that a woman fulfills the law of modesty as strictly inside that confines her to outside as uh, her house as outside. For example, it is an obligation for a woman to wear stockings outside her home, even in the heat of summer. And a truly immodest woman should observe that this obligation inside her home as well. Unfortunately, there are some indolent women who transgress this law by not wearing stockings even outside the home. This is a very serious infraction of the law, and such women should be regarded unfavorably by their peers. A few years ago in this city, which is Baghdad, he lived in Iraq. And women began to close their sleeves at the wrist instead of rolling them up to the elbow. At the time, I praised their decision profusely. Some people think that this is only the custom for young women, but this is a mistake, for it is a worthy practice for women of every age to follow. There's also a custom in this city that young girls wear a one piece dress that covers the entire body in accordance to laws of modesty. However, when they reach a certain age, they begin to wear more revealing clothes, which are open down in front of their sides. The The truth is that wearing this garment is not appropriate for Jewish women since it does not cover the body as required according to Torah. I have no doubt that those women who originally adopted this style of dress did so with complete innocence and that they were unaware of the provocative effects of the clothes that have on men. However, the time has come to make an objective estimate of the situation. We all know that this style of dress is immodest and that it causes men to think unclean thoughts. It is it is equally self-evident that only a garment which covers the entire body can be considered modest. Therefore, I have instructed my wife to stop wearing these garments, even though they are considered fashionable in our city. For, as I said before, the laws of modesty are equally applicable to the elderly as well as to the young. In short, it is the responsibility of each woman to make an honest appraisal of whether her style of dress